I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to go ahead and start the session off in executive session. Matters made confidential by the state or federal law. Ms. Anselm, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, we have one addition. It's the resolution. We have one addition. It's the resolution to accept retroactive pay and position title reinstatement of an individual.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to add action item number 1 in your additional business to Human Resources on page 13.
So moved.
Moved by Sue. Second by John. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So added. All right. I'm going to turn over our board recognition today to Miss Jen over there.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize the Stroud Middle School principal and their team, Mr. Orrick. Did I pronounce that right? I'm sorry. Because being a parent and when your kid gets to the middle school level, you don't really hear typically quite as much as you normally do when you're in elementary school. And weekly, we get updates on Parent Square. So I know exactly what's happening. I know what my kids are going to be doing. I know if there is a spirit day of some sort. And that's something as a parent I truly appreciate. Picture retakes. Like I'm up to date and know because not all middle schoolers will tell their families what's going on. And so that is one thing that I do appreciate. And I also, being a parent of a middle schooler, I drop my kid off every morning, and I really do appreciate the changes that you made to the drop-off. I feel like it's much quicker, it's much safer, it's organized. I love that it's organized, and it flows very nicely. And because I go from that school right to another school, I have no problem getting, my other child to that school on time. So I wanted to recognize you for that. And I appreciate all your hard work that you and your team are doing. And I didn't ever want it to go unnoticed. And then also,
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
And his attendance.
Oh, yeah.
The attendance at the 7 and 8 is amazing. 92 plus.
He includes,
Weekly.
He includes that attendance in the weekly reports to the families, which I think is equally as important because the kids do need to be there. And I will say to my family is a little bit competitive. I will say to my youngest, I'll be like, listen, your sister's attendance for her school is at this. What do you think that, you can do? And so she's very much well aware that she wants to beat her siblings in the whole attendance process. So not that she has control over all this, students, but that is something that is important. It still holds, families accountable to know like, hey, this is important and this is our focus and this is our mission. So I do appreciate that as well. And then further, last week I was able to go to Gansevoort, and in Gansevoort they were having a recognition program for their students. And right at the beginning of it, I was able to see Miss Pula, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name too. I know it's really hard, yeah. So just what you expected of your students, what you wanted them to recognize safety-wise, how you expected them to treat everybody in the audience, and how they should treat their fellow classmates as well as teachers. And I think that's really good and such a positive reinforcement. But further, and this is what I love, she talked about, even though you might not get recognized for this award, for a Regal Reader or whatever mathematician, There are other ways that you can get recognized, and one of that was attendance for your students as well. And she has these really cool little tokens. I don't even know what they're brag tags, and each month is a little bit different. So if a student is there the entire month, they can get a brag tag to put on their backpack, and they are the cutest thing. And I kind of want one myself. So I feel like we should start issuing those out too. But I think you're doing a great job, and those are some great ways to have positive reinforcement. So thank you.
Great. Any public comment? Wonderful. All right. Superintendent Ansam.
I do not have a PowerPoint, and I do not have a long report. I want to say I'm really excited and thrilled to let you know that we are launching our Superintendent Student Leadership Council with our first meeting with students from grades 2 all the way to grade 12. And so we're excited about that. It's going to be right here from 4 to 5. The first meeting is going to be about getting to know you, the purpose of the Leadership Council. I've said to you early on, it is important that we always put students' voice first, and they are our students, and we exist because of them. So it is important that we get ideas, feedback, suggestions in terms of how they would like their school to feel like and what they would like to see for the generations to come. And so that is the purpose of the Student Leadership Council. We hope to continue to grow it, but I'm excited that about 20 are starting with us this year, and I look forward to continuing to grow it the following year. You know, when you start as a pilot, you got to start small. But definitely they will be involved in a lot of activities that we do. And before we implement something, this is the opportunity for them to give us feedback on it. So I'm really excited about that. Gender Perno is going to join me in running that council. And so we're really excited about it. And we just can't wait to see and hear from our students. And their job is to take it back to their buildings, get feedback from their peers. And every time they come, they're not only representing themselves, but also other students. So we're really excited about that. Yes, absolutely. We will have one meeting, but then we'll break out too in terms of elementary, middle, and high school. So there will be breaking out sessions so that we can kind of get to their levels. And that's why Jen D and other people will be joining me to make sure that we're differentiating. But you'll be so surprised. A lot of people don't think that young people have a lot to say. You'll be surprised sometimes the second and third and fourth graders are the ones you get a lot of information from. Because at that moment, they don't care what people think. They just tell you whatever's on their mind. And I've been to enough classrooms now since school have started. I've talked to kids, and they even know who I am. I'll say, who do you think I am? Well, the superintendent. Well, what does the superintendent does? And they'll tell you. And so the young people have a lot to say, and I think we just don't give them enough opportunities. As adults, we always want to do for them, when the reality is they have, right? You have something to say, and people need to listen, correct? And so that's why we want to give them the opportunities to do so. Well, the principals were the ones, with this round, the principals gave us some ideas of the students. They put it out there and they gave us the list of names. I told them what I wanted, what I was looking for, and also the criteria with everything that we do in this district to make sure that it is balanced, gender balanced. It is, represents the diversity of our students in every way. When I talk about diversity, I'm talking about students with disabilities, students who might be from different ethnic backgrounds, et cetera. So it is important that we have that, different grade levels, et cetera. So, yeah. No, that's about it. I'll wait for Sue to do her little presentation and I'll ad-lib on it.
All right. Well, speaking of the student voice, we will turn it over to our student board members.
This weekend, the Art and French Club had their Halloween event, and it brought in about 200 people from the community. And at the end of the first marking period, students were told that we needed to take quizzes or do writing assignments in every class. And I was told it was to enforce more writing and structure in our class. But I was just a little more, I was confused on what exactly the point of it was, because a lot of teachers were telling us different things. and it just didn't feel very the same, like, all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were told that it was mandatory through our superintendent.
Yeah.
That superintendent.
Well, what do you know? So that is a piece that the high school is implementing as part of their school improvement plan that is linked directly to some of the Regents exams and some of the standards. So it was found in the data that at the high school they were having trouble with multi-step problems, and then perseverance with that problem and staying with it. So there was two pieces that they're going to be looking at all year, every 6 weeks. It should be very similar from classroom to classroom, and it was not implemented by the superintendent. So it is a piece of the growth assessment that they're looking at to make sure that when you get to your test at the end of the year, that your multi-step problems will not have the same result that they had these past few years, and that the ability to stick with the multi-step problem and not quit the problem before you're done, that they should see an increase in that. So we just got to meet with RFA and the leadership there, and they did bring up the growth assessment piece. So I will take this feedback and go back to the team and make sure that the message is clearer for all of the students, so that if you were speaking about being confused, then I'm sure your peers and the rest of the students are also confused. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone in here can answer this, but I think there's like a little bit of an issue with the athletic department, like with the cheerleaders and the football players. There was a home game on October 19th, and it was teacher appreciation, but the cheerleaders had no idea that it was teacher appreciation, so we weren't like able to participate in it. And also, I was just a little confused on the uniform situation, because I don't know if most of you know, but the cheerleaders do not have enough uniforms. And so we were told at the beginning of the year that there was supposed to be an order placed in January, and there wasn't. And then there was supposed to be one placed in August, and there also was not. And the athletic director came and talked to us personally, and he told us that they would be here for the basketball season. But I don't think more than like half the team participates in basketball season, so it was a little like disappointing to hear that the uniforms were not placed after seeing the football players having multiple new jerseys for the year. We have shirts and shorts, and it's just a shirt that says Knights on it and black shorts that you have.
Digby. I know. I am making notes, and we're here to see whether or not this has come in yet. So I will double check. Okay, so I will follow up with our athletics director to make sure that the requisition and that the actual uniforms are going to be placed. A little late, I hear you, and follow up on that and make sure that we have those ready, definitely for the next season.
Okay, thank you. We did have a vote on uniforms, but it was just like shocking to see that we were voting for uniforms after we were told that there was already an order placed.
Okay, so for so do you already voted on the uniform that you picked out? That's the one that you believe you're getting?
Now for basketball season, so this past week we voted for them for basketball season, but before our coach told us that she had no idea what was being ordered and that they just ordered it for us. But that's not what happened.
Okay, I will follow up.
So I'll say what it sounds like is that perhaps there was talk about uniforms being ordered for you, and probably an order was not placed. And in addition, what you're talking about is when we talk about equity for all, that's what you're talking about. And so I want you to know that we have heard you in terms of that. And once you bring something to our attention, it is our job to make sure we follow up. And so we will follow up with the athletic director, and our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, is here as well. And so we will take a look at all of that so that moving forward, we don't have inequities in those type of situations. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so last thing is the students are wondering, and some staff, your views on snow days and delays as we're coming up into winter. Because with the changeover superintendents, we've really not had a consistent policy for them, and it's been changing. And since Rome is a big school district with 72 square miles, which you know, it covers Ava, Lee Center, Taberg, and more.
99 square miles.
99?
Mm-hmm.
I got to get my numbers right next time. And there's many new drivers as like inexperienced, not good drivers, which could be very dangerous during bad weather. And many of them just don't come to school if there's bad weather, which would be poor for our attendance and why it gets poor during bad weather. And most of the faculty and staff members don't really live in Rome. They live in New Hartford, Syracuse, and whatnot. So they shouldn't have to travel in bad weather conditions either. So we're just wondering your views on that and if you believe in them or not.
So my view is as long as we can transport students safely, we want students in school and we want staff members here to teach our students. That's my view. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yep. Oof, you girls came in with the hard questions today. Love it. All right. I mean, that's a tough act to follow, but our audit report is up next. I get it. And we'll have you use the podium mic just so that we can make sure we get you on the video.
Hallway. Thank you for having us. This is our audit for the June 30th, 24 financial statements. Thank you for having us here. What I have in front of you is two packets. The first packet is what we'll mainly stick to because we spent a lot of time going over this last Thursday with the audit committee. So, that's the required presentation. This is the extra presentation, and I'll spend as long or as little as you want. I'll stay here for 2 hours. I'll stay here for 3 hours. I'll spend 10 minutes. You tell me. So in the main report, there is a letter that's underneath the first big flap. So this is the required communication letter with those charged with the government, so the board. And in here, we talk about various different items, whether there's any change in accounting policies, and there's not. There are some coming up that we went over with the board. One particular might change the amount of the compensated absences calculation for vacation and sick time. But that's for next year. And then there's a lot of disclosure requirements that will improve the disclosures coming up in the future. The other part of this letter, we talk about estimates, and there's a lot of estimates that are throughout your financial statements. A lot of it with regard to actuaries that you hire or the state hires for the pension system or your other post-employment benefits. There are disclosures for compensated absences and, estimates for that as well. And then, as you go down and page 2, we talk about difficulties encountered in performing the audit. And this becomes the hard part to go over, because usually these letters are boilerplate. There's really never any issues. But this year we did have a number of issues that we'll look at briefly. So basically this year was kind of a stress test to see how everything throws. So when everybody, they threw a tornado at you, they changed staff on you. So there's the new superintendent. I don't know how much else could change. So throughout here, as we go through this, you'll see a lot of what's the paragraph underneath that talked about corrected and uncorrected misstatements, kind of the result of the difficulties that we had doing the audit. So a lot of reconciliation type of things, a lot of closing out of certain programs in the federal fund, truing up appropriated fund balance. There's a lot of journal entries. We had probably, there's 46 journal entries in total, which is a lot. We had 17 of those journal entries are normal journal entries. Anything that starts with a GW is just the way we convert the fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements, which are on a full accrual. So they include all your fixed assets, all your long-term liabilities, and such. So a lot of those, the other entries are there. There was about 29 journal entries that were needed to correct the information that was there on the trial balance. The revenues and expenses, assets, liabilities, in the normal fund. So in your general fund, special aid fund, the capital fund, that type of thing. So these are things that were out of the ordinary, and that's how we ended up with a lot of the comments that we had in the back. So if you turn back to page 4 is where we started the comments. Listing, we start out with closing the books of account, basically the reconciliation procedures, truing everything up, making sure that fund balance and the appropriated fund balance are properly stated, making sure due to, due froms are properly stated, make sure things that are in what we call it, there's a trust and agency fund that needs to get split out between the special revenue fund, which is just your scholarships, and all the payroll items, which just go to the general fund. That didn't get booked properly as well. So there was a multitude of entries. A special aid fund had to be reconciled out in some of the closed funds, interfund transfers, and just like a lack of reconciling everything out, reconciling state aid out, which should be fairly simple because it really is not going to change too much at the end of the year. So, we get the gen reports from the state. We just go out to the website and grab the gen reports and reconciling them out to those reports and making journal entries, cleaning up whatever receivables didn't get cleaned up from the prior year, that type of thing. This is normal bookkeeping type of things. It's the normal process that things go through. So we're just recommending, and each one of these comments, by the way, are a little bit different because when we met with the audit committee, I said these were work in progress. Well, this is kind of like the final. I spent the weekend trying to rewrite them and put them in the proper format, because when they get reported to in our main audit reports, whether it's the Yellow Book report, the Government Auditing Standards report, or the single audit report for the Office of Management and Budget under Uniform Guidance, they have to be in this particular format. So they have to be numbered correctly, and they have to have all the condition, criteria, cause, and potential effects of them. On the next page is really the documentation and safeguards. And like I said, this year was kind of more of a stress test. So because of the damage of the tornado, sometimes records aren't readily available. But, if you had really tested your disaster recovery. So that didn't work out as well as it maybe should be. So we're kind of recommending things like, I-9 forms. Well, maybe those should just be stored electronically. If you want to keep them in paper, you can, but you can just keep them electronically, and that goes to the cloud or some backup procedures and that type of thing. This way, if hopefully the business office doesn't get wiped out again, but you'll have the backup. So there was a lot of things missing. I don't think we found a lot of the I-9 forms. We picked 40 and didn't get any of them. Some of the payroll notices and that type of thing weren't available. ERS, TRS enrollment forms that we look for. This all goes to support our audit work papers and how we opine on the numbers. So every one of these comments, the 1 through 6, we're considering significant deficiencies. If I had just one of these by himself, I probably would say, well, it's a one-off. But collectively, that's why it rose up to the level of significant deficiency. The comment down below that on page 5, 2024-04 journal entries. Again, the systems and procedures for approving the journal entries, preparing it, storing it with proper backup and that type of thing, kind of broke down a little bit. So there should always be a check and balance, should always be an approval process. Some places I go, there's three different people that sign off on a journal entry when it gets posted. And that's important because, maybe if that happened, we wouldn't have had as many journal entries as we did have to correct things that were happening. The next page has to deal with budget reporting. Throughout the entire year, the appropriated fund balance was misstated on the revenue report, and the budgeted real property taxes was misstated by like $180,000. So that was reported the entire year and not picked up on. So I know we concentrate on revenue, on expenditures mostly. But even with the expenditures, some things got moved. Like tonight, you're approving transfers for the $6 million for the new project out of the capital reserve. Well, that was done before and not really specifically approved to happen. So that's what you're approving tonight later in your agenda. So that was that. The entire budget balanced, but it was just probably the two most important line items that are on the revenue detail for the budget. The property taxes and the appropriated fund balance. Payroll controls. This is just like, just straightforward, just simple checks and balances of how things normally work. The approval of the ERS, TRS reports. A second person approving the direct deposit information for the payroll. As once it's put in, somebody else checking it and approving it. So there was that type of thing. And every one of these comments has the response. Georgia was good enough to give us a response to all these, so hopefully these will be corrected. None of these are insurmountable. Like these are pretty easy fixes. The next one, on page 7, is the comments that we had on the single audit. And this has to just do with the Title I. And again, this was several documents we, inquired about over and over again. And we just got most of these on the 25th, last Friday. So, at some point we got to call it, because once we ask twice, and it's during the whole audit course, if they're not ready available, we got to question, well, how are the records being kept that they're not available? So that's why that ended up there. And then the last item that we had with the stale checks, and this is another matter. We don't consider this material or significant because these are just funds that there's about $138,000 of prior year checks that are stale dated. So vendors didn't cash them for one reason or the other. They could be lost or whatever. And then this year there was another $20,000. So there's about $158,000 of stale dated check. Right now they're listed in your accounts payable. But eventually they're supposed to go to the comptroller's office and, go into their unclaimed funds, and you can go to the state fair and go get your money. And then in back of that, and there's 6 pages of journal entries, and I'm not going to go through every one of these, but you could see like the breadth of the number of journal entries that we had to post to correct the records. Any questions on that? Any of that?
I think the final is we are fiscally in a good spot and financially what we can do in tweak.
Well, that's phase 2. So I'll flip over to the thick binder there, and I'm just going to highlight some. I don't want to take up your whole night, although I can. But if you want, I'll just give you the highlights. On the table of contents, you can see just a broad view of what's in the report. We have our independent auditor's report up front, management discussion and analysis next, which is a good read, but it's focused on the government-wide, not so much the funds. And then you can see under the basic financial statements, you see two sets of financial statements, the district-wide financial statements. Again, full accrual, all your fixed assets, all your long-term liabilities. And then we just go into the fund financial statements, which is what you're used to looking for. And then we get into the required supplementary information required by the Government Accounting Standards Board. Some pension information. The first report is the budget to actual report for the general fund, and in the OPEB liability schedule. And then down below that is the other supplementary information required by the this New York State Education Department. And the first one is the 1314 calculation of your fund balance limit and the reconciliation from the adopted budget to the amended budget. And then the one schedule that I liked, and I was even talking to Dave Nolan about the schedule in the the capital project schedule, because he adopted that for the city's books. So that's a good report to have continuously reported to the board, on a monthly or quarterly or that type of basis. So you know the status of all the capital projects. And then down below that, we get into the single audit schedules, and that's where you also find the findings that we just went over. They're just to the different letters. And then the schedule of federal awards, which you could see we tested about 64% of all your federal awards. Basically, we tested Title I and all the ESSER programs, all the American Rescue and that type of thing. So they made up about 64%, about $9 million of your $15 million of federal awards. So it was usually and we consider the district a a low risk school district because we didn't have findings over the last couple of years. So really, we're only required to audit 20%. That's the threshold. But because of the ESSER was so large and programs over 750,000, we have to audit every couple of years anyways. We have to get into the rotation. They call them type A programs, the ones over 750. A couple of years from now, they'll be $1 million. So the highlights to get back to, I'll give you the bad before I give you the good. On page 5 is a summary of the 2 years of your district-wide financials. And you can see on the bottom of that schedule, there's a $313 million deficit. And that's only there. Every school district looks the same, although their numbers might be a little less or a little more. But it's all because of the other post-employment liability for retirees' health insurance. So that's about $344 million of that liability. So it's just a function of what GASB requires to be recorded as long-term liabilities. So that doesn't affect your general fund and that type of thing. And you can see up above the changes in some of the long-term liabilities, like the non-current liabilities up above did decrease about $3 million, but that's mainly because that OPEB liability decreased about $10 million. So your overall bonds, you did pay $5.9 million on the bonds that existed, but you also issued $11.9 million of bonds through the Dormitory Authority. On page 9, these are all your fund balances. So your report now reflects the resolution that you're going to pass tonight about adding $900,000 to the TRS reserve. So that's about 2% of your salaries. That's what you're limited to every year. You're limited to 10% overall, but you only could put in 2% each year. So so your amount in the TRS went up $987,000. $87,000 of that was just interest. So down below, you can see your unassigned fund balance, about 12 million. That is 7.8% of your 24-25 budget. You're limited to 4%. Last year it was exactly at 4%. And the number that I like to use is if you compare this overall general fund balance to your actual expenditures, the $40 million there is about 31% of your overall expenditures in the general fund. And that's pretty comparable, probably even a little bit more than a lot of our other districts, because our other districts, that they go between 25 and between 25% and 30%. Some of them go low. There's outliers both ways, but I got one district that's 60%, and I got one district that's below 20%. School lunch fund down below, that's about 40% of the expenditures. You're limited to 50% now. It used to be 3 months worth of expenditures. Now it's 6 months. And then down below, you see that special revenue fund, that's your scholarships. And then down below, and the capital projects fund, the different, it shows committed because that's all the district's funds. But on page 55 is a detail of all the different capital projects. So mainly that's the $6 million they got transferred that you're approving tonight. I'll skip ahead and just some of the highlights here on page 17. Basically, this is your revenues and expenses for all the different funds. And here, if you were to compare it to budget, which the actual schedule's on page 50, if you were to look at the appropriated fund balance and the appropriated reserves, you would have had a $16.7 million deficit if everything came exactly to budget. But your expenses were 10% under budget, so $16 million under budget. Your revenues were $7.9 million over budget, so about 6% there. So once you combine all that, you ended up with a $7.2 million surplus, which is good. The changes in the revenues and expenses in the general fund, the property taxes went up as budgeted about 3%. The use of money in property was interest. That went up $1.2 million. It's because you were more active in investing the funds in New York class or NILAF or that type of thing. And then state aid was the big one, going up about $12.5 million. $10 million of that was the foundation aid going up. Any other questions on that? I mean, again, I can go on and on, but she started it. So
I mean, we did have a very thorough office. We're in our audit meeting. We did have a very thorough review of this, so I just wanted to thank you for going through it with us like that. And I would just mention that our community member who is very knowledgeable of accounting and finance, Dave Nolan, who used to be the city treasurer. So, I mean, he's very knowledgeable. He sat in with us at the audit meeting, so that was also a very good portion of it. So, thank you. It was very enlightening.
Thank you.
I want to say, obviously, looking at the audit, there's a lot of deficiencies that we have to correct. We have a new team, and I think we recognize that. But moving forward, we are going to look to you to look at process and procedure, whether it's getting papers electronically, like he said, because we owe it to our employees and our district to not know where important things are. Just wanted to point that out. But I feel very confident with the team you've assembled that we can put things and plan forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because it really looks like an organization issue, some of it.
The thing I would like to add, though, is what we went through this year was just in some ways catastrophic for us as a district, because not only did the business office move to a new location about 3 weeks before the tornado, before our new superintendent came on board. So there was already some disorganization just from a normal move anyone would have. And the fact then that a tornado hit that totally disrupted where your files and everything were, and then you moved with an interim a week after that who really didn't have as much knowledge of what we originally had, and everything was in boxes. So, I mean, I just did want to point that out, and you did, as Darkangelo wrote in the report, those were some of the conditions that existed. So I just wanted to mention that was part of the reason, and as far as when you bring it up that we need to go more moving like a lot of our files and things onto an online system, we'd already started that process. And that was part of the problem, was some of our files were already with the company that's scanning things in. So we didn't have access to them at that point in time, given just the craziness of everything going. It was hard to go back and have everything done in that time frame. So I do want to compliment not only the superintendent, but our finance department, who really worked diligently in a very difficult time to get everything together. And thank you for working with us as far as timeline, because I know it was very difficult for you also. So I did just want to bring that to everyone's attention. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any final word as the Director of Business and Finance, who's working to make sure that we are up to date on everything?
As he did mention, we did put a management confirmation in there to acknowledge that we did have some of these processes that either failed this time around due to a number of things. And luckily or unluckily, however you'd like to look at it, over the last 6 or 8 weeks that I've been here, we have started to put new processes in place so that we will not have those issues again in the future. Some of that also goes to play because a lot of these things actually come from HR as well. And as you are aware, we had a number of things happen between May and August in the HR department, which has also caused us not to have some of those documents. So, and as Mrs. Carvelli had mentioned, we did have a number of our boxes moved from the district office to what's called file bound, and they have not finalized all of our digitizing yet. So that's made it difficult to find a number of the items that they were looking for as well.
Well, thank you as always.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right. Moving on to our consent agenda. Resolution to accept consent agenda. That upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the consent agenda be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution. Second by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes, which moves us to page 11 in the agenda and on to Sue with some finance.
And item 1, resolution for approval of contract between County of Oneida and Rome City School District. Whereas the County of Oneida, organized under the laws of the state of New York, is in need of special education individual evaluation and program services for preschool children with disabilities as required by Section 4410 of the New York State Education Law and Part 200 of the Regulations of the Commissioner of Education. Whereas the Rome City School District is approved by New York State to provide special education services in compliance with the aforementioned regulations to eligible preschool children with disabilities, whereas the contract between the County of Oneida and the Rome City School District specifies the provision of these services from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2029, contingent upon the availability of federal and/or New York State funds, whereas the Rome City School District will be compensated at rates approved by the New York State Education Department and is published on the New York State Education Department website, ensuring compliance with all relevant laws and regulation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the contract between the County of Oneida and the Rome City School District for the provision of special education, individual evaluation, and program services to preschool children with disabilities as outlined above. I move the resolution.
Seconded by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Number 2, a resolution to approve the transfer of monies. Whereas the voters of Rome City School District authorize use of $4,400,000 from the 2022 Capital Reserve and $1,600,000 from 2019 Capital Reserve to pay for the 2022 capital project on May 21st, 2024, whereas it is necessary to allocate funds from the general fund to the capital fund to support the execution of this project. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the transfer of $6 million from the general fund to the capital fund for the purpose of financing the 2022 capital project as authorized by the voters. Be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrator are hereby directed to take all necessary actions to effectuate this transfer. I move the resolution.
Second by Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Number 3, resolution to transfer monies to the Teacher Retirement Services Reserve Fund. Whereas Rome City School District, the school district, established a Teacher Retirement Service Reserve Fund pursuant to Section 6-P of the General Municipal Law, and whereas Education Law Section 3653 requires that no monies may be paid or transferred into any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of its Board of Education, and whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education of the school district that up to $900,000 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund are surplus funds, and that it is in the school district's best interest to transfer such monies to the school district's Teacher Retirement Service Reserve Fund. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $900,000 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the Teacher Retirement Service Reserve Fund, created in accordance with Section 6P of the General Municipal Law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30th, 2024. I move the resolution.
Second by Paula. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Okay, the Finance Committee's next meeting will be November 7th, 2024 at 3:30. And prior to that, we will have an Audit Committee meeting at 3 o'clock. And just as a committee report very quickly, we did have a meeting on 10/17, and we started with a review of our budget versus actual revenue. And one of the things that we are going to start looking at is, I believe our business director was going to start giving us a percentage of funds that are spent so far up to date, which would be very helpful to the committee on the recommendation. Kelly had asked about that, and it was a very good recommendation. We had a discussion about the effect of the tax base on school taxes and how that affects us all. A request for proposals, a discussion about if we were going to go out for RFPs for district legal counsel and external auditors, as we have not done that in many, many years. We did a risk assessment of the audit update, and that was probably pretty much what we went through. So, and that concludes finance.
Thank you, Sue. All right, we are going to go ahead and go over to Kelly under Human Resources, the added agenda item, action item number 1.
Action item number 1, resolution to accept retroactive pay and position title reinstatement. Whereas the Rome City School District Board of Education recognizes the importance of fair compensation for its employees, and whereas Emily Till, previously employed as a principal accountant clerk, has provided valuable service to the district, and whereas an audit of payroll records indicates that Emily Till is entitled to retroactive pay for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $8,019.20 for an inaccurate position placement as a senior account clerk. And whereas it is essential to ensure that Emily Till's salary is adjusted retroactively to the new salary rate of $48,686.38 effective July 1st, 2024, with a longevity increase of $1,000 on base on August 16th, 2024. And whereas the reinstatement of this position title of Principal Account Clerk for Emily Till is consistent with the duties and responsibilities performed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rome City School District Board of Education hereby approves the payment of $8,019.20 in retroactive pay to Emily Till for the prior fiscal year. And be it further resolved that the new salary rate for Emily Till will be effective retroactively from July 1st, 2024 at a salary rate of $48,686.38 and a $1,000 longevity increase on base effective retroactively from August 16th, 2024, and be it further resolved that the position title of Principal Account Clerk for Emily Till is hereby reinstated effective July 1st, 2024, reflecting their current role within the district. I move the resolution.
Second. By John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Looks like no policy for today. Or do we have any update?
We have a meeting on November 6th, and we will have probably some policies for your consideration for first read. November 18th.
Love it. Can't wait to see those back on the agenda. All right, we don't have any miscellaneous business, so we'll move on to discussion items. The first is to establish retreat dates for spring and summer board retreat.
Yes, I just wondered when we had our first retreat during the summer prior to the tornado, that morning before the tornado, we talked about continuing some professional learning as a team. And so just wanted to see if you wanted me to identify some dates for the spring. That way we can have a part 2 to our part 1 and definitely start planning early for the summer retreat because I know there's vacation and things like that coming up. So we want to make sure that we're being proactive and planning early. So if you want me to identify some dates, we can do that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you thought about topic for spring?
Spring will be a part 2 of part 1 because remember he said there's so much more to go in depth into, so we can have a continuation of part 1.
Perfect.
And then we can plan for summer.
Great. Do we still owe the agreement of dates for the elementary?
So building visits?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Child abuse training reminder.
Yes. As soon as possible. Yes. If you've done yours, great. You are in great company. But yes, you need to do a refresher every year. So please, please, please. That's why it's a reminder so that you can get it done as soon as possible. It is important.
There's a test we have to take when you're done.
Yes. So you can't just have it play and not pay attention to it because you have to pass the test. There's a
We just make you keep taking it, Kirsten.
You are a public servant, and it is a requirement. No, I know.
And I could be able to answer those questions as a parent.
Awesome. And before I hand it over to Sue, in accordance with our policy on board not retreats, conventions,
Yes.
To give us a recap, just 2 things that have hit my lap here. There is a public meeting that was addressed to the Board of Education at 6 p.m. on November 4th, 2024. It says, please join the City of Rome for a public meeting to introduce the state and national registers of historic places and the accompanying New York State Homeowners Tax Credit Program and a joint federal and state credit program for you. So if you're interested, that is happening on November 4th at 6 p.m. at the Capitol. And then if you did not see the invite, our wonderful partners at Connected Community Schools have their grand opening and ribbon cutting tomorrow. It is at their 207 North James Street location, and the ribbon cutting will start at 3:30. And now I will turn it over to Sue to talk about the NYSBA retreat.
Yes. So I attended the NYSBA retreat, and I went down on Saturday because Sunday morning I went to a law conference all about AI, and it's how it is going to impact school education. It was one of the most interesting things I've ever listened to, understanding how the laws are really going to be affected. A lot of our policies could be very well affected by what comes forward about AI. But it was it was uplifting in many ways, but at the same time, it was kind of scary. I guess for me it was, not understanding a lot of it. And then from there, the actual conference started on Monday, and I went to, the problem is you have to pick which courses you'd like to attend. And as Nurlan was there also, it was very difficult picking just one because there was so many that were very interesting that were all offered at the same time. The only good thing is we each, I believe, have, because we're members of NYSBA, you have now, if you look at the NYSBA website, you can have the slides that were presented with each one of the courses. So you can actually go through and see what was presented. I went to ones on absences add up and how to really work on getting, because again, it's not just here, it's everywhere. So it was a very, very interesting, put on by two individuals who both worked on their PhDs, was all around this. So it was a very interesting presentation that they gave. But the one thing that I think I took back from that was it has to be a district approach. It can't just be one individual school is doing it one way within a district and another school does it a different way. So one of that they said was making daily attendance calls, establishing positive contact with the home individuals, and helping parents connect with school directly. If they're the ones, they gave a perfect example of a high school student who didn't want to get up. They were tired every morning. And the mother said, look, I've done everything to try and get this child out of bed in the morning to get to school. And so a vice principal and a guidance counselor and another individual from the school actually went to the parent's home and went into the child's bedroom with the parent and said, hey, we're here to get you to school. So we're giving you 5 minutes to get up out of bed. So it was just a really interesting story of how they went about really, really increasing getting kids coming to school. I went to one on foundation aid, and I guess what all I took from that was foundation aid is going to be a very interesting topic going forward into this state budget, and it's not in a very positive light. Let's put it that way. I went to one on strategies for effective board meetings, and I think Cassie, our board president, could come and teach this course much better than the individual who taught it was. I would say that. So I went to one on educator workforce crisis, and it was all about using registered apprentice programs. And this one was very interesting because it is something that Onondaga BOCES is actually doing right now, and it's putting in a teacher within your school system who's already at a graduate level, and you hire them as an apprentice in your school for 2 years, and then they're hopefully going to stay with your school district. The salary for that individual can be run through the BOCES. Our BOCES here has already spoken with Onondaga BOCES because it can be a cross-contract, but it's obviously something we would have to speak with our union about. But it was a great way of talking about possibly getting special ed teachers or some of the categories that are very hard to fill. I did ask if speech pathologists could be under their program and was informed no, that they're not included in it. So any of the extras would not be. And then the last one I went to was on the state revenue and your budget, and it was a very good explanation. If anything, I would encourage all board members who are new to the board to go back to those slides and go through them because it actually explains how the state budget, how the state revenue affects our budgets and what to look for. And again, part of it is making sure you're using up every available penny from the state that we can, by going back to BOCES and doing our expense-driven aids and doing things like that. So I would encourage all board members, if you can next year, to attend if we have the funds available, because it really is a very, very interesting and eye-awakening. Not only going to the sessions, but talking. I talked to people from so many areas across the state who are having many of the same issues that we're experiencing. And I guess the last one I would say is the highlight of the whole conference was they brought an educator from England who specializes in A1. He has written 2 books about it, A1 in Education. AI, I'm sorry, AI in Education. And it was probably one of the most interesting presentations we've had when it's not even understanding watching. I mean, one of the things they presented was it was not real at all. It was a whole, Morgan Freeman did the whole thing, and he wasn't at all in it. So it was pretty scary in that respect. Would you like to comment on that one?
On the glasses too. He was speaking to his glasses, asking for information. And, I don't know if you know, there's AI rated glasses now. So he was wearing a pair, and he asked a specific question of that glasses, and he got the response. I mean, that's the world that we live in right now.
Can I just say one? Now, and I'm not being silly at all right now. If my mother was to be watching this right now, she would not even know what you meant by AI. So a lot of people don't realize that is the artificial intelligence that's coming out. Like, there's so many people out there that don't even realize what there is out there and how, besides as a parent, it's scary, to that part. But this is the stuff that we're, but I think it's important too, though. And I'm not at all being silly. We have to when we use initials, we have to kind of probably tell a lot of people, even me included, because sometimes we say stuff that what we mean, but the artificial intelligence is, it's scary. It's crazy.
The technology is so advanced. Right. There are a lot of benefits to it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are fearful of it. Yes, there's always drawbacks. With everything, there are the good, and there's also some things that you have to be aware of. But overall, I think in terms of education, we cannot stay away from it. It's here. Students are utilizing it almost every day. And so it is important that we at least embrace it and embrace the benefits of it. What I love is the fact that, first of all, they're making you aware. But similar to what Sue was saying, a lot of the stuff that we are beginning to talk about in this district, they also talk about. So one of the things that myself and Genderperno has done, we are talking to our director of technology to go beyond giving a device, but really being able to teach people how to utilize that device in a beneficial way so that we can prepare our students for the future that's coming. This technology is advancing. It's almost like every day something new is coming out. So it is important that our staff members are up to date with that stuff and be able to prepare our students for what they're going to encounter in college. In addition, in terms of media literacy, because I went to a session focusing on media literacy, or what they call news literacy, being able to there's so much stuff coming at you, and there's so much information, and the students are not being good about desegregating between what's fake and what's real. And so there's a course for that. And I know that New York State is going to require that we teach media literacy, being able to decipher between misinformation, malinformation, disinformation, and really being good about asking the why. Because so many things are being spewed out there and people just believe it and not realizing that a lot of these things are made up stories, which are hurtful in the process. The absenteeism, we're tackling that. We're not the only district that's tackling that. A lot of districts are also working on that. And I think we're doing a great job overall. When you look at the weekly data that we provide you, overall at all of the levels, we're doing well. We still need some work in some of the older grades. But the reality is, at least at K-8, I am confident I'm so proud that we're at 90+%. In terms of evaluation of superintendent, I think we did a great job. I went to a session on that, and I just sat in there just to kind of get a sense of what it is, and I can commend this team for making sure that we have an evaluation. We had goals that we set for the superintendent, and then knowing how to evaluate that superintendent at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and also at the end. So far, so good.
I would add to everything is, as far as artificial intelligence, thank you. They talked about the fact that in New York, in all of the country, a sound basic education is something we're supposed to be giving to all students. And what they said is right now, employers, colleges are going to expect our students coming forward have a basic competence. and artificial intelligence. So we have to start utilizing some of the programs and things that are out there, because if we don't, we're not preparing students for what they're going to be going into, which really is our goal in every way, shape, and form. So that was probably my list.
One question I had, because I think it was an overwhelming topic last year, like every session slot had about 2 different topics on it. Were electric buses even a topic this year?
We spoke with an electric bus company who told us that they cannot envision that will really come to play in the time frame they have given it, for 2 reasons. One, there's no way our state right now can afford some of the paybacks that they would have to make for it. And B, there's no way our grid can handle it. And I think, to be quite frank, a lot of things that have been happening climate-wise have proven that now in many different ways. They talked about that also. So you can't charge a car in a hurricane. And so
And I suspect that that's an issue that's going to be dead on arrival. They're not saying it yet, but I suspect that it's going to be dead. Some districts have tried it and has found a lot of difficulties. I think some district who piloted probably gave that feedback. And with our school district being 99 square mileage, we would have to definitely plug them in a lot. And so I think it would just present a lot of issues. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere any further.
Only other question I have is, so my workplace is a leading forefront in Gen AI, so I'm very Gen AI versed, or AI, lots of different types of AI. Is there an opportunity for us to have someone come talk to the board for like a workshop of just like, so I know how to use it in the business world, right? Or like for a general public, right? Like when you click on a link or you stay on a video for really long, why does Facebook continually pop up with the same videos? That's AI. It's just reading your clicks and your durations. Thinking about like from an HR perspective, a lot of people are doing like chat bots to help self-enable people to get them to the right direction or self-enable themselves. So AI is really great in a lot of ways, but obviously we know there's a lot of bad ways too. So I think it would be great from an education standpoint to kind of hear, what are the opportunities, the cost, benefits, and all of that.
Well, I would love to have a workshop for you guys. So if you would like, always willing to have someone come and definitely start that discussion with you. And then furthermore, one of the things I forgot to tell you is that our director of technology, we've been sitting down with him because you know me, with everything, I like to have a plan. So I've asked him to put a technology plan together for how we do technology in this district, not only from a data and security, but even looking at instructional pieces to that. And in addition, I've given him a whole framework of AI in the PK-12 space for him to read and incorporate that AI framework into our technology plan so that we're making sure that we are being holistic in our approach with the use of technology. So, but in addition, if you would like some education to start with to get your feet wet a little bit, we're happy to do so. We have lots of partners in terms of BOCEs, and they are well-versed in that stuff. So you just let us know when, and I'm happy to make it happen.
All right. Any other discussion items? All right. Any new public comment pop in? All right. With that, thank you all for coming, and I will make a motion to adjourn our regular meeting. Moved by Kirsten, second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a wonderful Monday night. Thank you.